Ji-hoon stood at the threshold of a journey that would test the very fibers of his courage and determination. Clad in his rugged travel attire, he gazed into the dense, misty forest that lay ahead. This was the path to the domain of the fire deity, a realm spoken of in hushed tones and old legends. With each breath, he steadied his resolve, whispering to himself, "Every step takes me closer to the fire orb. The test of courage awaits." The forest was a labyrinth of ancient trees, their branches entwined like the fingers of giants, and the ground blanketed in a carpet of moss and fallen leaves. As Ji-hoon ventured deeper, the air grew thick with mist, and the path ahead became less certain. He could barely see a few feet in front of him, yet he pushed forward, guided by the flickering torches that lined the trail. Their flames danced in the still air, casting eerie shadows that played tricks on his eyes. The silence of the forest was profound, broken only by the crunch of his boots and the distant, haunting hoot of an owl. It was as if the forest itself was watching him, its inhabitants curious about this lone traveler daring to tread where few had ventured. Ji-hoon felt a shiver run down his spine, but he shook off the feeling of unease. He had come too far to let fear take hold now. As he walked, his mind replayed the tales of the fire deity, a mighty being who wielded the power of flames and guarded the coveted fire orb. It was said that the deity was not just a keeper, but a tester of hearts, revealing the true mettle of those who sought the orb. Ji-hoon knew that what lay ahead was more than a physical journey, it was a trial of his spirit. The path began to slope downwards, leading him to the mouth of a cave from where a warm, red glow emanated. The cave entrance was marked by runes, glowing faintly in the dim light. They were symbols of an ancient language, one that Ji-hoon had only seen in the old texts he studied in his grandfather's attic. He paused at the entrance, taking a deep breath. The heat emanating from within the cave was a stark contrast to the cool, damp air of the forest. He could feel the energy of the place, pulsating like a heartbeat in the earth. It was both intimidating and awe-inspiring. With a final look back at the forest behind him, Ji-hoon stepped into the cave. The ground underfoot changed from soft earth to hard, scorched stone. The walls of the cave were streaked with veins of glowing magma, casting the surroundings in a fiery hue. The air was thick with the smell of sulfur and burnt stone, and the heat was almost suffocating. But Ji-hoon pressed on, driven by a purpose that transcended his discomfort and fear. He thought of his grandfather's teachings, of the stories that had filled his childhood with wonder and dreams. This was his moment to be part of those tales, to be more than just a listener. As he delved deeper into the fiery depths, the cave began to widen, opening into a vast chamber. The light grew brighter, and the heat more intense. Ji-hoon knew he was drawing near to the heart of the fire deity's domain. His heart pounded in his chest, not just from the heat, but from the anticipation of what was to come. He realized then that this journey was not just about acquiring the fire orb. It was a journey of self-discovery, of facing the unknown and emerging stronger. With each step, Ji-hoon felt his resolve harden, his spirit becoming as unyielding as the stones that surrounded him. He was ready to face the fire deity, ready to prove his worth, and ready to claim his destiny. The chamber ahead glowed with an intense light, and Ji-hoon knew that he was on the cusp of his encounter with the fire deity. He tightened his grip on his backpack, squared his shoulders, and stepped forward into the light, ready to face whatever challenge lay ahead. This was his moment, the beginning of a legend that would be told for generations. Ji-hoon, the seeker of the fire orb, was ready to make his mark in the annals of history. Ji-hoon's journey through the misty forest continued, each step taking him deeper into a realm that felt increasingly removed from the world he knew. The path, illuminated only by the flickering torches, wound through the ancient woodland, their flames casting long, ghostly shadows that seemed to dance and twist around him. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the distant, unseen rustlings of forest creatures. His heart beat with a mix of anticipation and anxiety, a symphony that resonated with the soft crackling of the torches. This is the path of legends, the path of trials, he thought, recalling the tales of old that spoke of the fiery deity and its sacred orb. The weight of his backpack seemed to grow heavier with every step, laden not just with supplies, but with the burden of expectation. The deeper Ji-hoon ventured, the more surreal the forest became. The trees seemed to lean in closer, their branches intertwining above him. In the heart of the cavern, a world forged from fire and shadow, Ji-hoon came face to face with the guardian of the fire orb. The fire deity, a magnificent entity, towered above him, its form a swirling amalgam of flames and molten rock, pulsating with the primal power of the earth's core. The air around it crackled with heat, and the ground beneath its fiery presence glowed, as if struggling to contain its immense power. "Mortal, why do you seek the fire orb?" the deity's voice boomed, echoing off the cavern walls, resonating with a heat that was felt as much as heard. Ji-hoon, standing in the shadow of this fiery colossus, felt a surge of awe mixed with fear. Yet, his voice did not falter as he replied, "I needed to fulfill my destiny and protect my world." The deity's flames flickered, casting a light that danced across Ji-hoon's determined face. "Many have sought my orb, driven by greed, power, or folly. Few understand its true nature, its burden." Ji-hoon listened, his heart pounding in his chest. Here he was, in the presence of a being as old as the earth itself, a keeper of a power that could shape or shatter worlds. The deity continued, "The fire orb is not merely a tool, it is a test, of character, of strength, of resolve. To wield it, you must first prove yourself worthy." Ji-hoon nodded, understanding the gravity of the deity's words. He was not just on a quest for a magical object, he was on a journey to prove his mettle, to earn his place in the annals of those who had braved the unknown and triumphed. "Your test, Ji-hoon, will be one of courage," declared the fire deity, its voice resonating with the finality of a verdict passed. "You will walk through the Inferno's path, a trial by fire, where your spirit will be tested against the very essence of my domain." Ji-hoon's eyes widened at the mention of the Inferno's path. It was a legendary trial, one he had heard in hushed tones from his grandfather, a path through fire, where the air burned, and the ground was aflame. Yet, there was no fear in Ji-hoon's eyes, only a resolute spark that mirrored the flames around him. "I am ready," he stated, his voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil that churned inside him. The deity's flames surged, illuminating the path that lay ahead, a narrow corridor lined with fire, its end shrouded in a haze of heat and light. "Begin," it commanded. With a deep breath, Ji-hoon stepped onto the Inferno's path. The heat was immediate and intense, a searing wave that threatened to overwhelm his senses. The air was thick with the smell of burning, and each breath felt like inhaling fire. But Ji-hoon walked on, each step a testament to his resolve. The flames licked at his skin, but he did not waver. His mind was focused, his heart clear with the purpose that had brought him here. As he walked, the path seemed to stretch into infinity, a never-ending corridor of flame and heat. His clothes were singed, his skin slick with sweat, but his spirit remained unbroken. The fire tested him, challenged him, but he met it with the strength of his will. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the path began to clear. The flames receded, giving way to a chamber that glowed with a soft, golden light. At its center lay the fire orb, resting on a pedestal of stone, its surface alive with a dance of flames. Ji-hoon approached the orb, his body weary but his spirit triumphant. He had walked through fire, faced his fears, and emerged unscathed. The fire deity's voice echoed once more, "You have proven your courage, Ji-hoon. The fire orb is yours." Ji-hoon reached out and took the orb. It was warm to the touch, pulsating with a power that resonated with his own. As he held it, he felt a connection, to the deity, to the fire, to the very earth itself. With the fire orb in hand, Ji-hoon turned to leave, a smile of triumph playing on his lips. He had faced the deity of fire and emerged victorious, one step closer to fulfilling his destiny, one step closer to becoming the hero he was meant to be. The journey ahead was still long, filled with unknown challenges and trials, but Ji-hoon was ready. For he now carried with him not just the fire orb, but the knowledge that within him burned a fire just as powerful, just as indomitable. Ji-hoon held the orb aloft, its glow a testament to the journey he had undertaken, the trials he had endured. He felt a sense of kinship with the element of fire, a bond forged in the heat of his courageous trial. As he exited the cavern, the path that once seemed daunting now welcomed him like an old friend, its flames no longer a threat but a symbol of his newfound strength. The fire deity watched him leave, its fiery gaze softening. In Ji-hoon, it saw not just a mortal, but a soul tempered by courage and determination. "Go forth, Ji-hoon, bearer of the fire orb. Let your journey be lit by the flames of your will," it intoned, its voice echoing through the cavern like a benediction. Emerging from the cave, Ji-hoon found the forest bathed in the soft light of dawn. The world seemed different now, brighter, more alive. He realized that the change was not in the world, but in him. He had faced one of the ancient guardians of the world and emerged not just alive but transformed. As he trekked back through the forest, the map in his possession, now marked with the triumph at the fire deity's cave, Ji-hoon contemplated his next destination. The journey to acquire the remaining orbs promised to be fraught with challenges as daunting as those he had just faced, but his resolve was unshakable. The forest seemed to celebrate his victory, the trees whispering tales of the brave soul who walked amongst them. Birds sang songs of valor, and the wind carried his tale far and wide. Ji-hoon, once a simple seeker of truth, was now a part of the forest's lore, a hero in the making. His thoughts drifted to his grandfather, the man who had ignited the spark of adventure in him. Ji-hoon smiled, knowing that he was making the old storyteller proud. He was not just living a story, he was creating one, a tale that would be told for generations. As he exited the forest, Ji-hoon looked back one last time at the path that had led him to the fire deity. He knew that he would return to these woods, not as a seeker, but as a guardian of the legends and protector of the realm. The fire orb, now safely tucked away in his backpack, was more than a token of his victory, it was a reminder of his purpose and the path he had chosen. Ji-hoon's journey was far from over. Ahead lay more adventures, more guardians, and more trials. But he was ready. With the fire orb as his guide, and the lessons he had learned etched into his heart, he stepped forward into a future filled with endless possibilities. His steps were light, his heart filled with a sense of purpose. The world lay open before him, a canvas on which he would paint his destiny. With every step, he wrote his story, a story of courage, of adventure, and of a hero who walked through fire and emerged as a beacon of hope. Ji-hoon's tale was just beginning, and the world awaited his next chapter. The forests, the mountains, the rivers, and the skies were all witnesses to his journey, participants in his story. He was no longer just Ji-hoon, he was a hero, a protector, a bearer of the fire orb. And so, Ji-hoon walked on, into the pages of legend, into the annals of time, his story a blazing trail of fire and glory. The world would remember his name, and his tale would be told wherever tales of heroism and bravery were cherished. In the heart of the forest, where the journey began, the trees whispered his name. Ji-hoon, the brave, Ji-hoon, the protector, Ji-hoon, the hero. And the world listened, eager for the next chapter in the epic tale of Ji-hoon and the orbs of Eldoria. In the cavernous heart of the fire deity's domain, an inferno raged. The air was thick with heat, so intense it seemed to warp the very fabric of the cave. Ji-hoon stood before the deity, a figure of flames and molten rock, whose presence dominated the space like an ancient god of old. Only those who can walk through fire, unscathed by fear, are worthy, boomed the fire deity, its voice resonating with the crackle and roar of the flames surrounding it. The deity's words were not just a statement, they were a challenge, a gauntlet thrown down at Ji-hoon's feet. Ji-hoon, facing the deity, felt the heat wash over him like a tidal wave. The inferno before him was more than physical fire, it was a test of his very soul. But his voice did not waver as he responded with a steely determination, "I will not falter." The deity gestured towards the heart of the inferno where, amid the searing flames, lay a golden key, its surface glowing with an ethereal light. This was Ji-hoon's objective, the physical embodiment of the courage he needed to demonstrate. Taking a deep breath, Ji-hoon stepped towards the flames. The heat was immediate and overwhelming, a wall of fire that threatened to consume not just flesh, but also the resolve of any who dared to enter. But Ji-hoon's determination was a force unto itself, an inner flame that burned as fiercely as the fire he now faced. With each step, the flames licked at his skin, the heat an all-encompassing entity that sought to overpower him. But Ji-hoon's mind was clear, his focus singular. He was not just walking through fire, he was walking through his fears, through every doubt that had ever held him back. The fire roared around him, a maelstrom of heat and light, but Ji-hoon kept moving forward. His skin felt like it was ablaze, his lungs screamed for air, but his eyes remained fixed on the golden key. It was not just a piece of metal, it was the manifestation of his quest, of his journey to prove himself worthy. Sweat poured down his face, his clothes singed by the proximity to the flames, but Ji-hoon pressed on. He thought of his grandfather, of the stories that had shaped him, of the legacy he carried forward. He thought of his world, the people he sought to protect, the destiny he sought to fulfill. These thoughts were his armor against the flames, his shield against the heat that sought to overwhelm him. As he reached the heart of the inferno, Ji-hoon extended his hand, his fingers grasping the searing hot metal of the key. The moment he touched it, a surge of energy coursed through him, a power that was both terrifying and exhilarating. It was as if the fire itself was acknowledging his courage, recognizing the strength of his will. Grasping the key tightly, Ji-hoon turned and began his journey back through the flames. Every step was a testament to his bravery, a defiance of the fear that had once threatened to hold him back. The fire still raged around him, but Ji-hoon was no longer a mere participant in the deity's test. He was a conqueror, a warrior tempered in the heart of the blaze. Emerging from the inferno, Ji-hoon collapsed to his knees, exhaustion and triumph warring within him. The fire deity looked on, its flames dimming in recognition of the feat Ji-hoon had accomplished. "You have proven your worth, mortal," the deity intoned, its voice now a gentle rumble. "The courage you have shown is the true key to wielding the power of the fire orb." Ji-hoon looked up, the golden key still clutched in his hand. He was panting, his body pushed to its limits, but his spirit soared. He had walked through fire and emerged unscathed, not just in body, but in soul. He had faced the ultimate test and had emerged victorious. As he stood, the fire deity's form began to dissipate, its task completed, its role in Ji-hoon's journey concluded. The cavern began to cool, the inferno receding, leaving behind only the glow of the golden key and the heat of Ji-hoon's courage. Ji-hoon stepped out of the cavern, the key a heavy weight in his hand, but a lightness in his heart. He had passed the test of courage, had proven himself worthy of the fire orb. But more importantly, he had discovered a strength within himself that he had never known. He had walked through fire and fear, and had emerged not just unscathed, but transformed. With the key in his possession, Ji-hoon knew that his journey was far from over. There were more orbs to find, more trials to face. But he walked on with a new confidence, a new understanding of his own strength. He was ready for whatever lay ahead, for he had faced the fire and had not faltered. He had proven himself to be a true hero, not just to the fire deity, but to himself. As Ji-hoon stood at the cavern's entrance, the key still warm in his grasp, he took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought him here. The forest, once a place of mystery and fear, now seemed like an old friend, its trees whispering words of encouragement. He had walked into the heart of the fire, faced an ancient deity, and emerged a changed man. With the key in hand, Ji-hoon knew that his journey was far from over. The fire orb was just the first of many challenges he would face. But the test of courage had instilled in him a newfound confidence. He had stared into the abyss of his fears and had not blinked. He had walked through a fire that could consume mountains and had emerged unscathed. As he made his way back through the forest, Ji-hoon's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. The heat of the cavern still lingered on his skin, a constant reminder of the trial he had endured. The key, a simple piece of metal, was now a symbol of his courage, a testament to his strength. The journey back was a time for reflection. Ji-hoon thought of his family, of the grandfather who had regaled him with tales of heroes and legends. He thought of his own place in those stories, no longer a listener but a participant. He was living a legend, a tale that would be told for generations to come. With each step, Ji-hoon felt his resolve strengthen. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but he was no longer the same person who had entered the forest with trepidation. He was a hero in the making, a guardian of ancient powers, a seeker of truths long hidden. The forest seemed to sense his transformation, its ambience shifting from one of foreboding to one of respect. The birds sang a little sweeter, the wind whispered a little softer, and the trees bowed a little lower as Ji-hoon passed. As he emerged from the forest, the world seemed to welcome him back. The sun shone a little brighter, the sky a deeper shade of blue. Ji-hoon looked up, taking in the vast expanse above him. He felt small under the canopy of the heavens, yet limitless in his potential. The key to the fire orb was more than a victory, it was a promise. A promise of the adventures to come, of the trials he would face, and of the hero he would become. Ji-hoon knew that his journey was just beginning, a path that would lead him to places beyond his wildest dreams. With the setting sun casting long shadows behind him, Ji-hoon set off towards his next destination. The map, his faithful guide, promised a journey filled with wonder and danger, a path that would test his mettle and his spirit. As the stars began to dot the evening sky, Ji-hoon felt a sense of peace. He had walked through fire and had emerged not just alive, but reborn. He was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, for he was no longer just Ji-hoon. He was a seeker of orbs, a protector of realms, a hero forged in the heart of the inferno. And so, with the key to the fire orb safely tucked away, Ji-hoon walked into the twilight, his heart light, his spirit unbreakable. The road ahead was long, the journey uncertain, but he was ready. For he had faced the fire and had emerged not just unscathed, but triumphant.